The laminate on the break room table was warm from the afternoon sun. I kept tracing the edge of my badge lanyard between my fingers while the coffee dripped behind me, slow and rhythmic. Across the table, Jordan scrolled on his phone like he didn't feel a thing, like it wasn't my job he was stepping into. It wasn't supposed to matter. At least that's what I told myself last fall when Jordan started. New guy, fresh out of grad school, wearing slim-fit khakis and the kind of sneakers you don't wear to actually walk in. I'd been at the company 6 years. Long enough to have seen 4 different supervisors cycle through, long enough to know that if you just put your head down and did the job, they'd leave you alone, maybe even say you were dependable. That used to mean something. I'm a field ops coordinator at Weston Logistics. Not glamorous. Think spreadsheets, dispatch calls, safety audits, warehouse flags, broken forklifts, and busted pallets. My mornings start at 6:30 and end whenever the last truck checks out. I drink gas station coffee and keep a little notebook with me because the company portal's glitchy, and I don't trust the tablet they gave me to log field reports. When Jordan got hired, my manager Craig asked if I could help get him up to speed. I didn't think twice. "He'll shadow you for a couple weeks," Craig said, "just till he learns the ropes." Weeks turned into months. It started small. I'd be walking the floor with Jordan, showing him how to cross-check the incoming manifests when the label system flagged inconsistencies, and he'd ask a million questions, smart ones but constant. The kind where you could tell he was cataloging everything for later. I didn't mind. Hell, I kind of liked it. Thought maybe someone finally gave a damn about how things actually worked around here. But then he stopped asking and started performing. He'd cut me off mid-sentence in meetings to explain my process better than I could. He'd tweak my workflows in the portal and then present them like his own discoveries. At first, I figured he was just eager to impress. Then I caught him running a solo audit on Doc C, the one I'd been assigned for the week, and submitting his version to Craig with his name only on it. I didn't say anything. Not then. You'd think I would have known better, but I'm not the kind of guy who makes waves. I grew up in a small town where the motto might as well have been, "Don't complain, just work harder." Besides, things were already weird at home. My wife Melanie had just gone back to work after taking a leave to care for her dad. Our schedules barely lined up anymore. We'd wave at each other in the hallway or text about groceries from opposite ends of the day. We were tired in that way you don't talk about. So I poured more of myself into work. I trained Jordan like he was my little brother, walked him through freight priority systems, showed him how to double-check forklift maintenance logs, gave him the real reasons we skip certain warehouse lots in winter: black ice, poor drainage, loading zone blindness, not the crap they put in the SOP. He took it all in, and then took the promotion that came next. Let me rewind a bit. There was this morning in December, Tuesday, cold, frost so thick it made the loading dock look like a ghost town. I was fixing a misload tag on a container when Jordan came out, sipping a latte with a smug little smile. "You going to Craig's 9M?" he asked. "What 9Ms?" He paused like I'd asked him to define gravity. "Oh, weird, thought you'd be there." 10 minutes later, I saw Craig's door shut behind them. Turns out it was a leadership planning session. A prep meeting for a reorg. No one told me, even though I was the one with 6 years on the floor, even though I knew which drivers lied on their time logs and which vendors tried to backbill us every quarter. Jordan was in that meeting. So were the other leads. That was the first time I let myself think, maybe I trained the guy who's replacing me. Melanie noticed something was off that night. She slid a casserole dish onto the counter and nudged a paper towel toward me. I hadn't realized I'd been staring at nothing. "You okay?" "Fine," I said. She didn't believe me, but she didn't press. I think she was just too tired to start another hard conversation. We used to talk about everything: books, road trip plans, even dumb work politics. Now we just passed each other like quiet ghosts. 2 weeks later, they posted the new role on the company board, Associate Field Manager. I'd been gunning for that spot quietly, waiting for it to open up. Craig even hinted a year ago that I was on the shortlist if it came around, but the listing was weirdly specific. It listed qualifications I didn't even know were being tracked: recent process optimization and workflow efficiency audits. Stuff Jordan had named. Stuff I had taught him. I applied anyway. Did the whole thing, updated my internal profile, listed references, even wrote a cover letter like I was some stranger just walking in the door. I didn't hear anything for 2 weeks. Then one morning I opened my inbox and there it was. "Thank you for your interest in the Associate Field Manager position. At this time, we have chosen to move forward with another candidate whose qualifications align more closely with the evolving needs of the role. We appreciate your ongoing commitment to Weston Logistics. I stared at that sentence, evolving needs of the role, until it stopped looking like words. Jordan got the job, officially. That afternoon, he walked into the break room while I was heating up last night's lasagna, wore a button-up I hadn't seen before, carried himself like someone who knew everyone was watching. "You see the board?" he asked. I nodded. He smiled like it was a compliment. "Should be fun working together on the next level," he said, unwrapping a protein bar. "Appreciate everything you taught me, man." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. Because how do you thank someone for stepping on your back and calling it teamwork? That night, Melanie found me sitting in the garage, just sitting. I hadn't even taken my shoes off. She leaned against the door frame. "Was it work?" I nodded. She came over and rested a hand on my shoulder, said nothing. And for once, I didn't try to make it okay, I just let her be there. "He's got fresh ideas." Craig said it like that was all it took to erase 6 years of showing up early, staying late, and fixing the messes no one else wanted to deal with. The worst part wasn't that Jordan got the job. It was that no one at the company acted surprised. Not HR, not the guys on the floor, not even Craig. Like this was always going to happen, and I was the only one who didn't get the memo. They even had a little cake in the break room, sheet cake from the grocery store. "Congrats, Jordan," in bright blue frosting that stained your teeth. I stood at the edge of the room with a paper plate in my hand, pretending to eat a slice while Jordan told a story about how crazy it was adjusting to the audit schedules. I'd written that schedule, down to the hour. He winked at me once while talking, like we were in on it together. I threw the rest of my cake in the trash. That weekend, I raked the backyard just to be alone. The trees out back were mostly dead, but the wind managed to drag some leaves in anyway. I made a pile by the fence and stood there staring at it with the rake still in my hand. Melanie came out with 2 mugs, tea for her, black coffee for me, and set mine on the porch railing. "You're not sleeping," she said. I shrugged. "Do you want to talk about it?" I don't know what I'd say. She gave me that look, the one where she's not trying to fix it, just asking to be let in. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But what was I supposed to say? The guy I trained took my job and everyone's acting like it's fine because he has a college degree and nicer shoes. So I told her the truth I could manage. I think I made a mistake thinking hard work meant something. Monday came around like a slap to the back of the head. Jordan had a new nameplate outside his door. Yes, his door, because he got an office. Not a big one, but enough to close himself in and hold meetings without distractions. He held his first one that morning. Team calibration, the invite said. He ran it like a TED Talk, had slides, bullet points, even buzzwords, synergizing departmental touch points and streamlining redundancies. I watched Craig nod along like he was hearing fire being invented. Then Jordan looked right at me in front of the group. "I want to start shifting some of the more operational responsibilities to give folks like Mark," he pointed at me, "a chance to focus on field-level execution. That's where your experience really shines." Translation, we're taking you out of the loop. By Thursday, I wasn't even getting the doc reports anymore. They started routing straight to Jordan. I found out we had a new vendor coming in when a guy showed up in the lot with a badge I didn't recognize. Turns out Jordan had set it up through a vendor engagement pilot he'd proposed to Craig. I was the one who flagged that vendor's pricing errors 6 months ago. When I brought it up, Jordan said, "We're giving them another shot. Clean slate, right?" That night, I took the long way home. Drove past the exit, circled around through the industrial district just to clear my head. Thought about pulling into the bar near my old apartment, but I didn't. Instead, I parked outside a 24-hour diner and just sat there with the engine running. Inside, the lights were warm. A couple of old guys drank coffee and argued about baseball. The waitress laughed and wiped down a counter that didn't need wiping. I stayed in the car and didn't go in. Just watched. Melanie was already asleep when I got home. She left the porch light on and folded laundry on the arm of the couch. My work shirts ironed and stacked. She still believed I was the guy who deserved something for trying. It felt like I was letting her down just by showing up the same. The next morning I came in early. Earlier than usual. Just to feel like I was doing something. I checked the logs, reran the inventory counts, caught a bad shipment tag from one of the contractors. I fixed it without telling anyone, then stayed quiet in the background while Jordan held another meeting. He never mentioned the tag. But he did mention a near miss that he'd personally caught that morning, as if it had been his eyes on the floor at 7 in the damn morning. Craig nodded again, Jordan smiled again. I started to feel like a ghost in my own job. Later that week, one of the warehouse guys, Lewis, cornered me near the vending machines. "You okay, man?" he asked. I nodded. He gave me a look. "You don't look okay." "I'm fine. You ever think maybe you're too good at training people?" I snorted, "Yeah, apparently." He glanced around, then lowered his voice. "Look, off the record, half the crew's pissed. Jordan's acting like he invented the job. You built this whole system, and now we gotta act like it's his." I didn't know what to say. The fact that someone else noticed felt like a lifeline, but it didn't fix anything. "Appreciate it," I said. Lewis clapped my shoulder once and walked off. That night, I finally told Melanie the whole thing. Start to finish. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, hands around her mug, listening without interrupting. When I finished, she took a long breath and said, "Do you want to leave?" That hit harder than I expected. "I don't know," I said. "I don't want to just run. I built so much here." "Did they build anything with you?" she asked, "or did they just take it?" I didn't have an answer for that. The next day, Craig pulled me into his office. Said he noticed I hadn't been as engaged lately. "Is everything okay, Mark?" I wanted to laugh. Instead, I said, "Just adjusting." He nodded like he understood, like he was doing me a favor. "You know, there's talk of expanding Jordan's role again soon. Could open up new opportunities down the line." I stared at the wall behind him, the plaque with the company logo. I'd helped repaint that wall during the last remodel because the budget had been tight. Now I was wallpaper. That night, I opened a blank document on my home laptop. Typed resume at the top. Stared at it for a full 10 minutes. Then I shut the lid again. It was 7:15 on a Friday morning. Rain on the roof, coffee too hot, inbox already stacked. And sitting dead center in the middle of it all, an email forwarded by Jordan, marked urgent, about a shipping delay I hadn't even been looped in on. The subject line was sterile. REQ3 westbound freight route G error. But I knew exactly what it meant. Route G was mine, had been for years. It was the highest volume, tightest turnaround run we handled. If it bottlenecked, everything downstream stalled. Vendors got fined, drivers sat unpaid, clients threatened contracts. And now, thanks to someone skipping protocol, Route G was delayed. Again, I read through the email thread. It was worse than I thought. The issue started 2 days earlier when someone approved a supplier swap on a late manifest without notifying dispatch. Jordan had greenlit the change to streamline lead time logistics. What that meant in plain English, he let a cheaper vendor sub in with no field vetting, and the cargo ended up on the wrong trailer. That trailer was sitting idle in a distribution center 2 states away. The client was already furious. And now it was on me again to clean up the mess Jordan had made. I walked straight into his office. He was sipping something out of a branded Weston tumbler, feet up on the corner of the desk like he was posing for a catalog. "Morning, Mark," he said, like I was just there to borrow a stapler. "We need to talk about the Route G delay." He blinked, smiled. "Ah, yeah, unfortunate stuff. You're looped in now, right? You looped me in after it broke." He gestured like that was a minor detail. "You've handled stuff like this before. You'll fix it. That's why I didn't worry." I stood there, mouth tight. I didn't even know we were subbing out that vendor. "Well," he said, tapping his keyboard, "you've always said the process needed flexibility. I just made a judgment call." "You made a bad call," I said, level, "and now I'm the one catching heat for it." Jordan's smile twitched. He didn't like being called out. "I'm trying to build something here," he said quietly. "You can either help me or make this harder than it needs to be." I left before I said something that landed me in HR. Back at my desk, I pulled up everything I could. Old manifests, vendor contracts, routing schedules. I spent 4 hours on calls, another 2 on emails, and skipped lunch entirely. By 4 p.m., I'd coordinated with dispatch, rerouted the freight, and called the client myself to explain. They weren't happy, but they weren't walking either. That should have been the win. But it was. Later that evening, as I was about to shut down for the weekend, another email came in. From Craig, CC'd to Jordan, just a short note. Great work resolving the Route G issue, team. This is the kind of synergy we're looking for. Jordan, excellent initiative in navigating the vendor landscape. Mark, thanks for your support. Support. I was support now. I drove home with the windows down, letting the rain blow in. I didn't care. I felt numb in a way I couldn't explain. Not angry, not sad, just done. At dinner, Melanie barely touched her plate. I didn't either. Finally, she said, "You need to stop pretending this is okay." I shook my head. I'm not pretending. You're letting them take everything you've built. I don't have anything else lined up. So we make a plan. Her voice was soft but firm, but you don't have to keep being the guy they use up. The next Monday, I started setting boundaries. Small ones. I clocked out on time. I stopped answering messages after hours. I forwarded Jordan's requests with looping you in since this falls under your purview now. It didn't feel like rebellion. It felt like survival. Jordan didn't like it. He started showing up at my desk more often. Hey, think you could just help me wrap this up real quick? I'd glance at the clock. I'm heading out, man. Shoot me the details and I'll look at it tomorrow. Half the time, he didn't even try to hide the annoyance, but I didn't flinch, not anymore. Then one morning, I found a calendar invite waiting. Development check-in, Mark plus Craig, one-on-one. No context, just 20 minutes blocked, 2 days out. I knew what it meant. Jordan was gunning for me. Not just my influence. Not just the credit. My seat. I walked into Craig's office with my notebook and nothing else. He gestured to the chair across from his, leaning back like we were about to talk about baseball scores. I wanted to check in, he said. Make sure you're feeling aligned with the new structure. Define aligned. He chuckled awkwardly, just making sure the transition's smooth. Jordan's been introducing a lot of new systems, and I know that can feel sudden. Sweeping, I corrected. Craig nodded slowly. We're looking to build more cohesion. Jordan's role may be expanding again. He's got a real eye for process. I waited. You're a core part of the operations team, Mark, but we also need to be adaptable. There it was. I set my notebook on the desk and looked him in the eye. Can I ask you something? Of course. What's my future here? He blinked. I've done everything you've asked. I've trained people, covered gaps, fixed problems no one else even saw coming. And now I'm getting sidelined for a guy who's been here a year. Craig's face pinched slightly. It's not about loyalty, it's about trajectory. So my trajectory ends here. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. I walked out of that office with my jaw clenched so tight my molars ached. That night I reopened the resume draft. Finished it. Uploaded it to 2 job boards. No fanfare, just action. The following week, Jordan called another meeting. This one was different. He tried to reintroduce himself to the team like he was elevating his presence. Talked about how he was proud of our recent operational wins and how streamlining starts with unity. Luis caught my eye across the room and mouthed, "What the hell?" Jordan smiled like a politician. I also want to give a shout out to Mark here. He's been a foundational part of this process. Honestly, I couldn't have done it without him. Everyone clapped politely. I didn't move. Because I wasn't sure if I'd ever been insulted so publicly in such a polite way. That night, Melanie and I sat on the couch with takeout and a movie neither of us really watched. You applying anywhere? She asked. Yeah. Anything feel right? I nodded. One, it's lateral pay, smaller company, but the guy who posted the job actually called me after seeing my experience. She smiled. You thinking about taking it? I looked at her. Yeah, I'm thinking about it. Halfway through deleting the last few files off my Weston-issued tablet, I heard the knock on my cubicle wall. I didn't stop. I just waited to see whether it was Jordan or Craig who had come to ask me why my resignation email hadn't used more exclamation points. But it wasn't either of them. It was Louis. "You serious about leaving?" he asked, voice low. "Yeah," I said, tapping through the offboarding checklist. "I gave my 2 weeks yesterday." Louis rubbed his jaw. "Place won't run right without you." "It'll run, just not the way I made it run." He didn't argue. Just nodded like a guy who knew what happened when you handed a race car to someone who'd only driven bumper boats. I didn't tell many people. Kept it quiet, professional, polite. The only ones who knew right away were HR, Craig, and of course, Jordan, who found out through a forwarded email and immediately scheduled a 30-minute exit alignment on my calendar. I declined it, then rescheduled it for 10 minutes. Then showed up, shook his hand, and told him exactly what he'd always wanted to hear. "You want?" He blinked. "That's not Mark, come on, it's not about that. You got the title, you got the team, you got the office. Don't worry, I'll turn off the lights on my way out." His face twisted into something between sympathy and defensiveness. "You were always the guy people looked to," he said. "I just built on that." "No," I said, "you stepped on it." The job offer I'd gotten came from a mid-sized logistics firm in Redmond, nothing fancy, smaller footprint, fewer clients, but the regional manager, Calvin, was sharp, straightforward, and actually interested in what I brought to the table. When he called me after reviewing my resume, he didn't ask, "Why are you leaving Weston?" He asked, "Why didn't they promote you?" I didn't have a good answer. But I think that was the answer. I kept my head down for the rest of the 2 weeks. Jordan barely acknowledged me. Craig gave me a half-hearted farewell handshake in the break room and a card signed by people who probably didn't even know I was leaving until someone passed it to them. No send-off lunch. No department announcement. Just me, a cardboard box, and the keycard I dropped in a labeled envelope. Melanie picked me up on my last day. We didn't say much in the car, just drove in silence for a while, windows cracked, her fingers resting on the gearshift like she used to do back when we were 23 and figuring out rent. "You okay?" she asked after we'd driven 3 exits past home. "I think so," I said. I thought I'd feel more angry. And instead, relieved. The first Monday I didn't wake up to Weston emails. I walked outside with a cup of coffee and sat on the porch while the sun rose. No spreadsheets. No vendor calls. No fake smiles from guys who took credit for work they never understood. Just the sky turning pink and gold behind the trees and the sound of my neighbor's kid kicking a soccer ball against their garage door. New job started that Wednesday. Orientation was short. 2 hours in, Calvin introduced me to the systems and asked if I had ideas for improvements. Not as a test, just honest curiosity. I didn't pitch anything. Not yet. Instead, I spent my first few days watching. Taking notes. Learning how they worked before I offered anything. That was the mistake I'd made at Weston. I'd given everything up front. It took 2 weeks before I spoke up. We were sitting in a process meeting, hashing out a client retention issue. Calvin said something about late-cycle miscommunication, and I asked a quiet question about how escalation pathways were structured between field ops and client services. The room went still for a beat. Then he asked me to draw it out. 20 minutes later, I had a marker in my hand and 5 people asking if I could write up the process as a formal proposal. Not one of them called it support. That night, Melanie made spaghetti and opened a bottle of wine. "First week down," she said, raising her glass. "First time I felt like myself in months," I replied. She leaned over and kissed my cheek. "Told you, they didn't build anything with you, they just used what you built." And then, because the universe has a sense of humor, Jordan called. Not emailed. Called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hey," he said, his voice flat, "got a sec?" I stepped into the garage. "Depends." He paused, just wanted to say, "I saw the email Calvin posted about the new routing structure. That was yours, wasn't it?" "Yeah." He exhaled like someone had been holding their breath for him. "It's good, really good." I didn't say anything. I wanted to say thanks," he added, "for everything. Back then, I didn't realize how much I leaned on you until." You did, I said. You went quiet. Then, well, anyway, hope they appreciate you there. I didn't say what I was thinking. That they already did. The next morning, I deleted his number. The steel clip on my new company badge wasn't heavy, just unfamiliar. It caught on my belt loop every time I stood too fast, like it was reminding me, you don't work there anymore. It had been 3 weeks since I started at the new place. And something strange had started to happen. I wasn't just recovering. I was rebuilding. The first time I caught myself laughing during a team meeting, it hit me, I hadn't done that in months. Not fake laughing at someone's team synergy joke, not nodding politely while pretending to be heard. A real laugh, one that cracked through the shell I didn't know I'd formed. My new team was smaller, scrappier. No sliding glass offices, no hierarchy theater, no one scheduling brainstorm syncs just to hear their own voice. But what we had was clarity. Calvin didn't pretend to be the smartest guy in the room, he just hired smart people and asked the right questions. One afternoon he pulled me aside. You know, he said, the ops crew's already calling your routing proposal the Mark fix. I raised an eyebrow. He grinned, you made sense of something that's been broken for years. I didn't know how to respond. Praise like that used to come dressed in qualifiers, support, assist, input. This wasn't that. This was ownership. A few days later, a recruiter messaged me on LinkedIn. Big name company, fancy title, even fancier salary. I almost laughed. Where were you 3 months ago? I muttered, tossing my phone on the counter. Melanie looked up from the stove. Another offer. Yeah, way more money. She stirred the sauce. Are you going to take it? I thought about it for a second, a long second. No, I said, I think I'm finally somewhere I'm allowed to grow, not just be grown out of. She smiled. The next day I got a package at work. No sender info. Inside, a Weston Logistics mug, still shrink-wrapped, and a post-it stuck to the side in messy handwriting. Heard you landed on your feet, you always deserved better, Louis. I held the mug in my hands for a long minute before tossing it in my bottom drawer. Not as a trophy. As a reminder. The final email came a week later. Craig. Of all people. Subject line. Hope you're well. I clicked on it reluctantly. Hey Mark, just checking in. Things have been busy here, as you can imagine. Jordan's been adjusting to the expanded scope, but we've definitely felt your absence. I know things didn't end perfectly, but I hope you know your time here was appreciated. If you're ever open to a conversation down the line, let's grab coffee. No pressure. I didn't respond. Not out of spite. But because there are some doors you don't close loudly. You just stop holding them open. It's funny, I used to think loyalty was about sticking it out. Enduring. Taking hits without complaining because that's what adults do. That's what my dad did. 37 years at a company that gave him a cheap watch and a stapler when he retired. But loyalty goes both ways. And when it doesn't, when it's just you showing up and someone else collecting credit, you start to lose pieces of yourself. I didn't realize how much of me I'd left behind at Weston. Until I started picking it back up somewhere else. Yesterday, Calvin handed me a new project. Bigger scope, more leadership. He didn't say, you've earned it. He said, you're the right guy for it. It wasn't a thank you. It was trust. And that means more than any title Jordan ever chased. I still think about Weston sometimes. When I see freight trucks pass by on the highway, or when someone mentions vendor compliance at a conference. But it's distant now. Like a place I once lived in where the ceiling leaked and the doors stuck and you told yourself it was home because you couldn't afford to believe otherwise. Now I don't just clock in. I show up. If this story moved you, subscribe for more real-life confessions and emotional journeys like this one.